All right, welcome back, everybody. I'm Sunir Shah, president of the Cloud Software Association and CEO of AppBind. I'm here with Nam Lee, head of sales at Workato for the ecosystem platform. We have a really exciting talk for you. As a SaaS Partnership Association, 4,000 people now and growing, we like to bring stories in to help you with your career. One of the biggest questions we've had is, we keep coming up, how do I get my company to buy into the idea of partnerships? And I thought, who's the person who could bring a totally different angle to this? And I was like, well, Nam Lee is an expert in this stuff, but he does it from the other side. He's a salesperson talking to us. And of course, he's met every stakeholder and every objection and every motivator you could imagine. But of course, he only deals with the people who are successful enough to talk to him. So he knows what they've done correctly. And this can hopefully lead you to have a roadmap for your own success. So thank you so much, Nam, for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. And, nice to meet everybody here today. Like Sunir said, my name is Nam Lee. I'm head of sales for the embedded platform team here at Workato. We're an integration automation platform. I and my team work specifically with other business development and software companies to kind of help power their integrations. And so, really excited to kind of share what I've learned throughout my career, and particularly in this role. And hopefully we can get some helpful nuggets for you guys.
Just to remind everyone, the Cloud Software Association is cloudsoftwareassociation.com. We have a very vibrant Slack community. Come join us there. And for anyone listening today, this is really for you, right? So please ask questions in the Q&A and we'll get to them as quickly as we can. Because this is really about, everyone has this problem and it's always unique to your context. So the more you ask questions, the better we can answer them. Nam's seen it all. So with that, I want to learn more about your role at Workato and what Workato is for those who don't know it. But you've been working in this industry for quite some time. So I just want to give some of your pedigree. You're not like, I just joined Workato and I'm now, I read the training materials and now I'm selling it.
Yeah.
You were at Cloud Elements, you were at Statera. You've been in this space for a long time. So tell us a little bit about your career progression up to this point.
Yeah. Sure. So, since getting into SaaS and being in product for a while is kind of how I cut my teeth in tech sales, if you will. But really where my career took a really good turn was actually as a partner, as an SI at a company called Blue Wolf. And that's really where I started to understand where partnerships actually mattered, right? Because when you're in sales and you're going into that moment, you're thinking, I got a good sales pitch. I have a good product. That's supposed to be enough, right? And it was blind to me when I was at Exactly, that played very heavily in the Salesforce ecosystem, that was already a given. But being at Blue Wolf, being in consulting, I thought that gave me a really unique perspective in terms of it is all about not just the relationships you are, but how do you make sure you tie in the business outcomes that people are trying to drive towards with what you're trying to bring to the table as well, right? And when I left Blue Wolf to join Cloud Elements, which is another integration platform, particularly around OEMing integrations, I kind of took that mentality there. And be very honest with you, I went there as an experiment to see if I could take that mentality and if it worked in product. And we certainly had our success. The draw to consulting has always been strong for me. I always loved that universe. And so, I went back to Statera and really tried to start up their Salesforce practice again and had a lot of fun doing that. And then Workato came calling to try and start this ecosystem up. Workato is an integration automation platform. And so they help CIOs kind of tie in their backend offices and really automate business processes. But this idea that other product companies could take this and really bring it to market for their own product was an experiment for us as well. And so when I joined 2.5 years ago, that was really kind of the take there is, could we kind of bring some of these, different type of wins that we see in the marketplace and combine them to see if we can, create something unique here. And, we've been very fortunate in the last 3 years to find some success in helping what has essentially become a bit by accident, a bit by design, to really help other organizations really accelerate their partnership model, right? And really kind of, find a new perspective on how they view partnerships.
Very awesome. All right, so what we're going to do, which is wild because I've never had a salesperson willing to do this, but I said you're a nice person, so I hope it's true.
You can lie to your audience, it's fine.
That's fine. We rely all the time. Like,
there you go.
cloud software, I've used it. It's just I'm really trying to end it all. I mean, as the president
There you
of the
go.
Cloud Association. No, so we're gonna take your playbook and work backwards. So the reason why is this: like when people come to you, they've already got to a point where they've got buy-in, but it's always a mess by having to get to, like, it's still like usually on the beginning days. So you've seen all the objections. So let's start with when you get on a phone call, what are you pitching? Like, what's your elevator pitch for Workato, and who you're talking to usually? Let's start with there, and then we'll work backwards all the way back up the organization,
Sure.
right? Because all that stuff that has already happened before it gets to you is really what the audience is here to learn, and what they need to get done in order to be successful. So start off quick, like, what's the elevator pitch of Workato? Like, set the table, and who are you talking to on this phone call?
Sure. So usually who we're talking to are heads of product, right? I think they're the ones who own developing integrations. And, the poor elevator pitch I have is essentially, heads of product and product managers often need to make a decision in terms of their integration strategy. Am I trying to go wide? Am I trying to go deep? And that's a false choice that they need to make. The real kind of journey they need to understand is that end customers really want to understand, look, I need to go fairly wide, but the depth is really where data comes alive. That's where they need to be. Right. And so as a product manager, you can't be proactive all the time. You're going to have to learn how to be very quickly reactive. And so that's where a solution and a platform like Workato can come into play.
Okay, great. So you're talking to head of product.
Yeah.
Now we're talking, obviously, audience or partnership managers. So at some point, like, the product person has got the marching orders, right? I assume from the biz dev person. So what is that conversation like? You've already talked to the stakeholder for the business side. So what does that dynamic look like? Like, what is one person annoying the other person? What's like, you need that?
Yeah, I mean, so it usually starts somewhere in revenue, right? That's where the pain part always begins. I'm losing deals because I can't get more integrations. And so historically, business development owns how do you get more integrations, because you have to establish, right, partnerships with each one of these vendors, right? And so you're trying to do the analysis in terms of who do we prioritize and what can we do? And maybe it's easier to see of where I've seen business development leaders kind of fall down a little bit is they see themselves as like, I'm trying to do either, alleviate that pain point or even being seen as supplementary revenue. But that's a wrong way to look at it, right? A strong partnership leader really helps establish almost like a product roadmap and revenue. So then the stakeholders they bring in are product, engineering, et cetera, because it's more than just how do I remove this blocker, right? It's how do I establish the market we're going after? Does this align with our product vision and what we're trying to solve for? And the most successful partner managers that I've been able to work with really have a strong voice, right? And they're able to align where they're trying to go with where some of the other technical folks are trying to go.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I mean, a lot of my standard shtick, which I'm sure people have heard enough of, and we'll get there. We'll get to the customer side, but a lot of companies are so focused on the inside internecine problems between the departments and people, like inside your office, but the market doesn't care. Like, the customers have all the money, right? And so the truly great partnership leaders, I say, own the positioning of the company, because they're the ones who have to like tell the story through other people and have to see the shape of the market as a whole, because you're trying to actually organize where the company even just fits into the ecosystem, as you say. Okay, so this is a good establishment. Well, let's go back down a level. So you're talking to a head of product. Okay, immediately they're going to go no, because I've talked to heads of product. I've been a head of product. Head of products say no. That's their favorite thing to say. So what's going on? What are their big objections? So what do we need to do to get them past the hurdle?
Yeah, I mean, some of the biggest objections are, do I really need to do this now? It's been working, right? We very rarely work with people who don't have some type of solution in place. So is it really a bigger priority? I'm already working my own product. Is it a priority, right? The other one is engineering. To your point, they have to, usually rely on an engineering team or an integration and development team that has been building integrations, and that's its own political minefield. And so if I'm going to take this on myself, am I going to take this on the responsibility as well? The budget, operationalize it? Like, there's a lot to take on. So usually for us, when we hear early no's, it's, man, this feels like too much. And my organization is already trying to work this out. I have to talk to other people, which product managers can do, have to do quite often, but they're very challenging internal conversations, to your point, when you have to bring those pieces up.
I do want to like dive into this, because most of the partnership leaders on the business side, this is where they tear their hair out, because they can't get anywhere through product engineering. Everything dies there. And understanding how to get past that objection by itself would make this talk, worth the time for everybody. So what does it take, in your experience, to reset the conversation, reframe it? So from the immediate answer, all engineers, I'll build it myself. I don't need anything else, because it's another liability. I got to learn some crap I don't want to deal with. I like to have control. It's fun to build stuff. There's a million reasons why engineers do what they do. I'm a computer scientist secretly. Bookshelf down here is all my compiling textbooks. Anyway, it's a whole other thing. So I understand the pain and suffering, but you have to get past it. So what do you do?
It depends. It depends, on the company itself. Many companies, I'd say the majority of the companies we work with, the engineers that they're leveraging aren't coming on board to build integrations. They just happen to know how to do it. So they're tasked with it. So it's almost resetting the conversation to remind the engineers they get to actually go build what they came to go build on, which is the really cool product that, right, our customers are bringing to market. That's been a very powerful kind of perspective to kind of, reintroduce into the conversation. But we do work with integration teams, and, to my point earlier, it's important that people understand these binary choices, they may be false. And so, yes, engineers, you can build it, right? And maybe you should own it. Maybe you do want to build integrations. So then how do we make you more efficient? How do we make it faster, right? How do you demand more from the tools that you use in order to get there? And so for us, when we're thinking about our product roadmap and our vision where we fit, I think it's important for us to make those waters murky by design, right? We want people to not have to make decisions right there on the fly, because, business changes. Sometimes there's global pandemics that you have to be able to, flex to. And so we want to make sure, that we're at least mitigating some of those risks.
I can tell you from my own experience, like these things resonate with me. So when I was at FreshBooks, for instance, I had a good chunk of the engineering team under my direct control, like 6 or 7 engineers, to work on the reseller channel in the App Store that we're building with our own time and talent. But that was a huge chunk of the engineering team. And even I was like, Mike, who was the CEO at the time, like, this is absurd. Like, this is we're going to lose out on the competitive feature roadmap to the end customer if we're like diverting all this engineering. I feel like I've sidled up to my own failure here, because even if I was successful, all we've done is sacrifice the core product, right? And there was nothing to buy off the shelf at the time, so that's why we're doing it. And now I've created AppLine, which is a reseller channel in a box. Hopefully I can solve that problem. And there's now app stores in a box you can buy that could be bought. But that was something that taught me that lesson. And then I ended up working for BeFree.io, which is an email an email editor that you can put into your marketing automation tool. And what I found was a winning story to sell that was very simple. It's like, what's the cost of your engineering? So this is less than 1/3 of your cost of your engineering on hand. And as a product manager, that's just your upfront costs. But now, are you going to really assign an engineer to maintain this crazy amount of code? I mean, browser, CSS, whatever, APIs are the same. Workato has all these engineers tracking all these third-party services. Are you going to maintain relationships with all these companies and track all the APIs? You're going to, there's no way you can handle that. That's good. Any engineer assigned to that is going to quit, because they're going to get depressed very quickly, right? Because it's not what they signed up for. They wanted to work on this core product, and now they're in the quagmire. And that's a really good argument for tools like Workato, right, where you're taking on a really difficult technical problem with a lot of entanglements, right, that engineers don't want to suffer. You're not going to, no head of engineering is going to want to assign a good engineer to a place where they're going to quit ultimately, right? And that was a winning argument every single time, because even the engineers are like, I don't want to do this, right?
Yeah. And for large enterprises, I'll say that's a very, again, it's a compelling case. I will also say that there's some interesting commercial challenges that we've met and faced and have solved for on the other end of it, right? We mentioned this usually starts somewhere in revenue. Some VP of sales is like, I'm losing deals, help me out. And at some point, we always make that head of product say, go talk to that guy then, and go see how many more deals he'll close. And it's funny how quickly that conversation changes. And like, look, I know I'm losing deals. I don't know how many deals I'm losing exactly, right? When they're trying to make that justification of investment based on that as well. And I think something that, us and our team have really grown comfortable with, and we try to get, our partners to get comfortable with, is the unknown, right? Is not pretending that we know your adoption rate, your attach rate, how many customers are going to buy this, how much they're going to pay for it, right? We share best practices across our customers so that people have data points. But man, there's a lot of unknown we're all trying to solve for. And that, I know in our cycles, we say a lot of things like, hey, we really blur the line between, a vendor and a partner, and we genuinely mean it. And this is part of it. We're like, hey, let's put skin in the game and figure this out together, right? How do we make sure when you get burnt, we get burnt, right? And vice versa. And so, that's been a new, I think, wrinkle to my experience. And certainly I think our business that isn't normal, but it's something that has been, it's proven to build some really deep relationships, I think, with our partners and customers.
Okay, well, this is a good segue. So now we talked about the engineering team and what they need. Now we're talking the partnership. The motivator is going to be the revenue side usually. And so you're saying, well, VP sales, like I just lost another deal, but they can't quantify it, as you're saying, which is interesting to me. Wouldn't have expected that. But so how does this conversation go? Like, because this is the motivator. So
yeah.
So when does that conversation begin? Like, when does sales starts yelling at partnerships? They yell at CEO? Who are they talking to generate the demand internally?
Yeah, so we see them yelling or starting that discussion early, right? Before we even get involved, to your point. That's where the pain point kind of bubbles up.
Yeah.
We see very few times where people can come with a quantified number and aggregation. I've lost $3 million in the last 2 years due to this problem, right? And when we do, it makes a very easy conversation. Where we see more often is, I know there's this pain point because I feel it every day, but I can't tell, our SVP of sales likes to say, I can't tell if I'm bleeding from my finger or my neck, right? There's a certain degree to this. And oftentimes we're the ones who force that conversation to happen between product and sales. Hey, there's rubber and there's a road. Let's go meet each other real quick, right? And then we try to figure out, look, is this going to be an experiment? Are we trying to solve for something at scale? Or is this something we're trying to learn together what the degree of pain really is? And so usually, honestly, in conversations, we're asking, our champions and our heads of product to force those conversations or bring them to the table where we can have it together.
That's interesting. So like if you're a partnership leader without Workato on your back, you can still do the same thing. I mean, you would go to sales, in my experience, sales will either, depending on the relationship that you've established with sales, they'll talk to you directly because you're asking them all the time, how many deals have come up with another company, or when the quarters are being missed or the closed loss are being evaluated to finance or CEO, they'll come up that way. Is that right? Like, it's either up and down or laterally, depending on your relationship between the partnerships and sales. Is that right?
Yeah, I think like most things, I think it depends. I think to your point, I think, yes, these conversations, it doesn't matter what platform you're at, or even if you're talking about integrations, right? In general, I've seen great partner leaders really kind of lead that conversation with creative ideas in terms of where they can make more gains. Not necessarily, my apologies for people on the phone, not necessarily like, hey, where am I tagging these opportunities or how much can I influence this revenue? But, like I was mentioning in the beginning is, where, how can I expand the TAM that we're going into here, right? And then how do we enable who we need to enable there, right? And yes,
okay,
usually it starts with, removing blockers, but then taking it a step further and figuring out kind of where that leads. I think,
okay, I want to press into this. I think this is one of the squishiest areas because revenue is the scariest part of any company, and it could go in any number of directions. But if you're trying to give a roadmap for a potential partnership leader, number one, obviously have a relationship with your VP sales. That's good. Like, you should have a good relationship and be proactive about that. Don't let things come over the transom through up and down. You don't have things volleyed into your court. You want to be talking to your sales. And then number two, so you're talking to sales, and then you're saying looking at closed loss is insufficient because you want to do a market analysis. But how are you going to get information from VP sales to get him or her to be your champion on the revenue side? Like, how do you make that relationship work for you?
Yeah, so an example would be, we work a lot with people in the HRS space, right? And the HR techs and things like that.
Yeah.
So if the VP of sales says, hey, my charter is I need to go into the enterprise market, what does everybody say? Okay, let's go do in like a Workday or SAP success factors, stuff like that, right? I want to get into these ecosystems that have been living in this enterprise market forever, right? And so a good partnership leader there could number one, obviously establish those relationships, but then could also identify, and it's not just a relationship with VP of sales. This is where you need product and those technical feedback as well, is how do you make sure you can be the one who identifies the lowest hanging fruit? So I'm going to be biased because of integrations and consulting. I know how much I used to charge for like integrations for some of these pieces, but if I'm that partnership leader today, and I'm talking to a head of sales trying to get in the enterprise market, and that leader tells me I really want to get into SuccessFactors SAP because I know they play well in that space, I could tell them, look, you're right, but the technical lift of there could take you a year to really make some hay. We can look at some of the other players there, the Workdays of the world, some of the other players where the technical depth is still tough, but it's easier, right? And I can get you there quicker, right? Those are some creative things that I've seen happen in the field where now that relationship isn't about, hey, help me fix the problems that I have. It's, hey, help me expand the markets and help me understand what's possible and what I'm trying to do here. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So I want to talk about the marketer as well, the VP marketing as well, which is more on the outbound demand gen, but on the sales is like, the knife fight part of the revenue close. So I'm gonna fill in with my own experience, but I want to understand like how we get the VP sales. So like I'm with you partnerships. And so we can move up to the marketing side. So the VP sales, you're saying, is going to be tasked going after some ideal customer profile.
That's right.
And like in my view, I always said that integrations are not a trophy case. Like people have that trophy case on their site of all the people we're integrated with. It's not every individual logo that matters to the customer. What we discovered at FreshBooks and Olark and wherever else I've worked is, yeah, each individual integration matters in the micro part of the sale, but what customers really see is, yes, you are integrated with stuff in general. Like the whole integration program is the feature that checks the box, right? So if you're saying it, so to fill in what I'm hearing is like, if you're going after say SuccessFactors or SAP or whatever, the salesperson needs to say to the person, yes, you're using SAP, and yes, check, we work with all the other stuff in SAP, and then they can get past that point of the sale. Right? Is that what
Yes, I am saying that's what a VP of sales would ask for. Help me check off that box, right? Yeah. I can do SAP.
It's not worth going specifically like they're using, Gusto or whatever, specific thing. It's like in general, they want an answer. Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, very good. And then, that is hard, because if you're doing it one at a time, you're never going to be able to catch up to the market because the thing is there's so many new tools out here. You'll never integrate with everything faster than they're being created, right? This is what we found. Like we could never keep up. I'm basically doing your sales pitch for you.
No, I appreciate it. I'm trying to nod because you're doing a better job than me.
Everyone, Workato and AppBind right now.
No, yeah, exactly. Together, we'll do a package. No, but I mean, in all honesty, that circumstance is why I keep saying it's really tough to make bets. And I see a lot of product and partnership people saying, I have to make a bet. I have to go into this ecosystem now, right? You're used to be in Salesforce. I got to go to the Microsoft ecosystem, vice versa. And those are big bets. And those are scary bets when landscapes change so quickly. And so, I certainly feel for that level of anxiety of, God, I hope we don't bet wrong.
Okay. So that sales is just dealing with customers come over the transom, and they had some random, because it could be literally any piece of software in that ecosystem that they said no to. So individually identifying them is not as important to knowing there is a general problem here. But then you go to VP marketing, whose job is to then market into this platform, right? So what do they need from you for them to feel successful? I mean, I have my ideas, but like you said, like the partnership person is shaping out the market. It's not the VP marketing's job. And so how do these two roles interact?
It's interesting. We get involved in more go-to-market strategy conversations than I think I ever intended in the beginning. And so, where we see partnerships really help enable that VP of marketing is to sharpen some of that focus, right? Or to give some substance into what that VP of marketing is trying to get at. And so we work with a lot of product marketing people, even as we're onboarding and launching customers, because that VP of marketing is like, hey, how, this seems to align with the vision I've been putting down. I need everything now, right? I want to build content. I want to do stuff together with you guys because it does support where I'm trying to go. I think in order for that conversation to happen, for that to be in a great place, that partnerships person already kind of knew they were aligning there, right? So being in tune with where you're trying to go and positioning that way, I think is huge.
And one of the things that we've built at the CSA is the complete integrated partnership checklist. So all the marketing tactics for each partner, and those should be good marketing lifts. And then you have this ongoing marketing thing that people are doing, account mapping and co-selling, right? But you can't do that with the partners unless you're integrated, right? And so, when the VP marketing would be tasked with generating MQLs from the same platform, right? And so the partnership person should be supporting that because they're then getting all the relationships with ecosystem partners. So that should be the easiest conversation, but I don't know. It could be like also people stepping on each other's turf. Like, so how do you see them just like finding an alignment between those two groups so that
we rarely see conflict between that. I think because it is fairly regularly positioned as, look, we're happy to help, right? At that moment in people coming together with what we're trying to do, it does mean, to your point, I like the way you framed it, is like, what does the successful partner leaders do? At that point, and VP marketing is in the room with us, we know this has already been successful. We know there's executive buy-in. We know everything's already there. And it's, if I'm being honest, it's just excitement, right? And it's like people are rolling up their sleeves to kind of get work done, right? And that VP of marketing very, very commonly feel supported. They feel heard. It's very rare. I'm trying to think of a moment where I witnessed otherwise.
Oh, that's good. Yeah. I mean, imagine. I'm curious because I'm trying to map my way up. Okay, so VP, like, so the revenue lieutenants, like VP sales and marketing, are there, and then you have the C-suite, CFO and CEO, right? Come in. So they're the ones who decided they're going to do this or that. Why? So, and then where does, as a partnership leader, you're being directed. You're probably giving them feedback, but they're also basically giving you the corporate objective that we're going to go after SAP or SuccessFactors or whatever you're doing. So where did that come from?
I see CEO and CFO involvement when it goes positive is when those unknowns that we were talking about aren't the big unknowns, right? Everyone assumes that, there's some data missing here and that we're going to go figure it out on the fly, but directionally they feel comfortable with some of the pieces that are put in place, right? Their partner manager understands, where the market is going, right? They understand where the product is trying to go. Product and engineering understand kind of the level of effort that is going to be put into this long term, and they're comfortable, with that piece. But I think CEOs and CFOs are usually the most, even the most visionary CEOs, from our perspective, are some of the most conservative decision makers, which, to the point, right? It's their company, it's what they have to do. And so a lot of the calories kind of burnt around those two individuals are generally, hey, how do we make sure we're just mitigating as much risk as humanly possible?
We talked about this before in another call, but like there is a risk the CEOs deeply care about, because like inside the organization, you're right, like inside, like this stuff is stuff that VPs will sort out internally, like the how we're going to solve this problem. But the risk that they're dealing with is actually outside the company, right? Because the market is not live inside your four walls, right? It lives elsewhere. So, the CEO is motivated, you're right, not by their internal staff. They expect their staff to get the job done, but they're trying to figure out what the job is. So what is the job that has to get done in the market that they're actually worried about? What's the customer driving them? That's really the question.
Right. And is it the right customer that's driving the conversation, right? Do we want to do this? Is something that we hear CFOs ask the team on a call with us there, right? Is this something we're trying to solve? Or is that, people say, hey, we have this customer asking for that. I was like, is that a good customer, right? That's something I think CEOs struggle with, particularly in times, where they feel like they're successful. Because like you said before, of course, you have to listen to the customers, they're paying for it, but you do have to establish a vision, your market, where you're trying to go. And you want to make sure you're not following lemmings off a cliff, if you will, right? You're following the right type of feedback that you're hearing.
I think I would imagine that with the pandemic, you must have ended up with basically two types of customers. Like you have the companies who are like, I need to control I want to control that I can control. It's a good time to invest in product because honestly, everything's integrated. You have to be integrated. This is a good time to do it. Or those who realize that the being integrated is actually their product. So like these are I don't know if there's other stories that the CEO is worried about. Like, but what is it that drives the CEO to go, yeah, the customer needs this?
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Yeah, you're right. Your assumptions on, when the pandemic hit, everyone kind of focused on what they had right in front of them, right? And so from an executive standpoint, you need to make sure that your resources are focused. Everybody's working on something that can really help build that for you. I think a lot of times, CEOs are afraid, number one, they don't want to be the first to do something, and they also don't want to be the last to do something, right? And I think the pandemic did it, we were fortunate enough that it did a pretty decent job of making sure that focus kind of came to fruition in terms of, what we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to enable people to be able to do.
I think like, what's the thing? Like, where does partnerships fit in to the overall company strategy? It's not about dealing with sales and marketing internally and engineering, but that's how you get the job done. But partnerships is fundamentally about serving that customer somehow, right? Like the customers need it for some reason. Like if you're using SAP, you're using SAP. There's no way around it. Your product will not sell unless it works with SAP and all the other parts of SAP, all the third parties, right? And so for a partnership person to generate the buy-in at the C level, if it's still, or the CFO, is this the right customer? They would probably have to demonstrate, well, this is what, like the customers that you want have these problems, right? Like they need data to flow.
There is that, and right, and part of this is your application that you set out and your vision of what you wanted to bring to the market is great, and it could be the best one, but for nobody, most people aren't coming out with just like a data platform, right? They're out there, but even those guys, right? Like you become important to your customers when you help those businesses come alive, and that data really needs to live, right? And for that data to live, to your point, it simply has to live seamlessly, right, with everything else that customers are using today. And if I'm starting a software company today, and you have started software companies today, really that's my anxiety, for what it's worth, is if I can build the best platform, how do I make sure people don't just use it, right, but they rely on it? And what we're seeing more and more of is, as that ecosystem continues to explode, man, people are relying on a lot, less and less and less on one particular application, right? That data is really a bit in the ether, and people rely on particular data, and sales can rely on something. Something funny to me is when certain giant CRM companies out there are like trying to be the one of everything. Like, why would an accounting person want to use Salesforce, man? Like, that's not, accounting people don't want to get in there, right? Necessarily. Sorry, all my friends that, there, but it's true. When I talk to accountants, they're like, no, this is where I live. And I hate it when I have to leave there, right? And so I think about that a lot whenever I think about starting my own company. When I think about, where products really kind of shine, it is really creating, a certain ecosystem where that product comes to life. And the people who build those ecosystems are invariably partner leaders, right? And the best partner leaders, it's a pretty fluid ecosystem. It's wide, it's deep. They can move whenever they need to. And that's when, when we start engaging with those companies and those ecosystems, I'll tell you, that's when we get excited.
We have a bunch of questions flooding in, but I do want to just finish this part because it's interesting. Because one of the interesting, so one of my shticks that I frequently say, because I think it's important. A lot of partnership people or SaaS companies are just not customer oriented, no matter what. They're just so focused inside the walls. And this is where failure leads to. And like you said, partnership leaders are actually more interested in what the market structure than I think it's true than almost anybody, because you're forced to. You're working through other companies. You cannot literally just send an email directly to a customer as a partnership person. You have to understand the shape of the market and work through it. And one of the things you understand is like, no one cares about you. I mean, you should know that as a marketer, no one cares about you because they have their own lives, right? Customers have their own businesses. They have to every day they have to wake up and run their businesses. You have to fit yourself into it. Partners have their own businesses too, and they're selling themselves to customers. They can't care about you more than themselves and their customer relationships, right? And so the customer has this ecosystem around them, and the partners and the companies that they work with would be your partners, have their own, universes. You got to shape yourself into that. And like for the CEO who's looking at the vision, like they're they're the captain on the bow of the ship with a salt spray into their face, trying to navigate through the fog, right? If you can lay out as a partnership person, the map ahead of them, avoid the rocks here, more friendly ports over here, that is, I think, the primarily like the executive level role of partnerships. Otherwise, you're just a mid-level marketing manager, right? If you have to be navigation, you have to help the company steer, because you're the only person talking to all the other companies in the ecosystem, because that's your job. You're the relationship person, right? Yeah. And so, like you mentioned this, I'm just curious if you've ever seen a success, like what's the most successful way someone's ever communicated? This is what our company does, and this is how it fits into the world at large, and this is why we need, obviously, an app ecosystem platform. Have you seen something like that? Like, is there some advice you can give to people what has actually communicated that well?
I don't know, because I'm not that partnership guy. I've seen it do us. I like, maybe to the point of this conversation, I'm seeing it from the other side, if you will. Yeah. I've seen people be very patient in terms of gathering some of that information and then make with that data that they have. So we have a couple of, partners and customers that went out with a lot of unknowns, weren't sure exactly that big bang and bet to do. And they were even, frankly, trying to find their own identity, be it through, they just went through an acquisition, or they just went through, recent round of funding, and they just scaled, right, from a startup to now they're an enterprise, and they're trying to grasp at their identity. And now they're leveraging a quick ecosystem just to figure out kind of where the market is pulling them into. And then once those trends start to solidify, then they start to make big bets. Okay, I'm a project management tool. I'm used to working with a bunch of marketers. For the first time ever, these giant IT organizations are now engaging with me. I am now a collaboration tool. And now I can help everybody, right, really establish quick wins, what they're trying to do. And as deep as your IT team needs to go, I can help them make that happen. We've had customers kind of quickly iterate down the line. I know we use that term a lot, but it's true, right? And what they all have in common is they don't try to make that bet with too many big unknowns, that they really are listening to the data a little bit. And then when they see it's directionally moving one way, then they go big and they go bold on that strategy.
That's interesting. It's like the opportunity to transform yourself, really, from being a point solution to being the platform, which is the power. Salesforce, obviously has a big partner, Financial Force, right? But then if they don't have the accountants in Financial Force, you still want to get them involved with Salesforce somehow. So I know Salesforce knows this, which is why they're so easy to integrate with all these platforms. Either way, no matter what, they want the whole company to be able to get involved with Salesforce, which is why they're Salesforce. Like they are the platform. Right? Yeah, that was like a initial strategy right from the beginning of that company. Yeah. All right. Awesome. We have a bunch of questions here. So before we wrap up, maybe we should just quickly summarize and then get to the questions. So top down, customers need it. Data has to flow. The spice must flow. Data follows, customers follow the data. You want to build a platform. That's the vision of the company. CEO, CFO, they're conservative, but if you show them this is where they're going, because there's already a spark there, you can accelerate it. That's good for you. Marketers like to see the product marketing opportunities of working with the integration partners in the ICP target. Sales just wants a check box. Yes, you can answer, yes, we have integrations whenever they're going after the same customer. Product and engineering are worried about ownership and the mud ball, and you have to show them that it's cheaper and easier and less depressing and demoralizing, honestly, to get stuck in the weeds here. And this allows them to get on with the fun stuff. As a partnership leader, therefore, like these are the relationships you can cultivate, and each one has a different story. I think that's a fair summary of what we talked about. I mean, that's a pretty good roadmap to be a successful partnership leader.
Yeah. And I know we brought in some high ideas about partner leaders. I'm being very transparent with you guys. Please embrace that role. Like, it's so much easier for everyone in the organization when partner leaders say, I'm going to help establish this vision, right? I think it is one of the few things that, rises all ships.
Yeah, absolutely. Don't just be the person who sends emails out.
That's
all right, let's think about the future of the company. Okay, let's do some questions. Really simple question. I'm not sure if you know the answer to, but Ward Christian asks, do you think it's fair to ask about MDF early in partnership discussions? That's interesting. Like if you're doing integration work or product marketing, I mean, you said now you're a consultant, kind of a partner consultant. I don't know if you talk about MDF and Workato, if you have any idea.
Yeah,
maybe you're at a tie at some point. Maybe you have an MDF opinion.
I
there's market development funds, by the way. That's when you fund the partner to go market.
Yeah. We don't talk about that early in the conversation, but yes, certainly it becomes a point of it. When I was mentioning when we work with a lot of product marketing people and et cetera, that does become part of it. But actual NVF like that, to us, that's a fairly tactical piece as when it comes.
Yeah, it feels like out of scope for what Workato would be doing.
Yeah,
but it's interesting. We have an MDF question in the CSA Slack somewhere. So you just search MDF. There's a conversation open about it right now, actually. Lisa Lawson asks, at what stage did Workato really invest in an embedded OEM strategy?
So I'm trying to make sure I only share what I'm allowed to share. I just saw the question. So I'll share what I can. So Workato was founded in 2013. The first type of OEM engagement that they had were with very large organizations, QuickBases, Intuit, stuff like that. And that happened at founding, right? At 2013, 2014. I joined just under 3 years ago to really start this as a dedicated business unit. And at first, I think we were thinking it's just going to be a sales channel. But we quickly realized we're going to build a siloed business unit. The stakes are different. The stakes are higher. At that time, we had just got our Series B funding. We just had closed a Series E recently. And so that's kind of in the last 2.5 years, 3 years, that's been the growth. In terms of that, and we've invested. I now have we have a business unit team of, I think over 70 or right around 75 people that do nothing but embedded. That goes from product to, our go-to-market, customer success, everything. So percent of revenue, I can't share specifics, but it's less than half. When I first joined, it was single-digit percentages. It's certainly now well into double-digit percentages. And frankly, if I can be transparent, I never want to get too big because we do introduce certain channel conflicts with greater Workato. And so I think it's important for us to make sure that we are doing our due diligence to grow the company in a very healthy manner.
That's something we could probably talk more about. I don't want to.
I didn't mean just open up a bunch of worms, but it's true. So.
Well, the Christmas party is going to be awkward now.
There you
go. Mikey Schmidt asks, I totally resonate with everything you say. I have another challenge. We're a young startup company with limited resources and need to focus. What a surprise. By the way, I don't know what company doesn't have limited resources and needs to focus. Yeah. Every company, no matter what size. What is your experience more important for scaling up? Channel, and reseller, or integrations to grow an addressable market? What a generic question for an unknown company.
Unknown company, am I supposed to say not integrations? No, look, again, full transparency. And we tell people this all the time. There is an integration journey that you have to understand where you are in it, right? And if you think integrations aren't that painful and you haven't built a few native ones yet, just go do that and do it reactively to what your customers need. Your channel and reseller is going to more organically, help you scale your business itself. Where you need to start thinking about integrations to help bring that TAM in is when you start to see some of those pains, or you start to having to make reactions that are bears, right? People think I'm going to build this integration to get in the Salesforce ecosystem. And then the worst thing that happens to them is it works. Oh no, now you're successful. Now you have 50 new customers in the Salesforce ecosystem. All their implementations are different. All the permeations of the integration are tough. Now, what do you do? Right? That's when you know, okay, it's time to make a change. Otherwise, that channel and reseller system is really, it's built to kind of help you scale early and often. And so I did sell against integrations, but that's my honest take.
I'll be the reverse because I'm selling a channel and reseller tool at that point. So I'll sell integrations first. We'll just be low on hardy. Yeah, but the channel team can't sell a product that's incomplete. So integrations are necessary. So if you don't do integrations, you're dead. I don't know if you would go straight to a cloud connector right out of the gate, like you said, but you need to have a plan to complete the product so that the channel partners can actually implement and solve the customer problem. They're not like, they don't sell software. They solve client problems. Your product has to solve client problems. You need product fit, right?
Yeah.
Then you can have channel fit. But yeah, so it's, I mean, you'll know based on demand, but if the product is complete, then you go to channel, right? If it's incomplete, then you have to continue going. Okay, Pablo asks, how do you go about recruiting partners and how do you get them? Would you rely on a third party to vet resell as far as ISVs, whatever? So he's wondering if you should go to a partner consultant, or you should just do it yourself. Interesting question.
Do you have a take?
Since there are a number of consultants in the CSA, and actually we have a consultants directory building. Actually, Lisa is a consultant. And I was a consultant, so I think like any outsourced business function, it's just a matter of time versus value and control. So if you have a quality person that is reliably delivering you results that you can go to market quickly with, great. And also it's like a risk thing. So it's faster to go to market with a consultant, but if it doesn't work out, you can also say goodbye quickly and try something out and learn. If you don't know anything, you might as well learn through a consultant. If they're doing a good job, you leave it alone. I mean, if they're not doing a good job, whatever. If you need more control, then you insource it. Just when you outsource, it's just speed, right? Speed and pain. That's really
and it's industry experience, right? I mean, I think we're going to go back to focus, but especially with our own partner ecosystem. When I first joined, there were hundreds of partners in the ecosystem, and it was more important to identify, again, like the right customers. Who are the right partners? What do they have in common? You work with a lot of organizations that aren't sure of that, right? So being able to hone in on what type of partners you want to work with, a consultant would be very helpful for that. They could have experience across dozens of customers that are like you that can add that level of experience. So yes, I think there's a ton of value that consultants can kind of bring to that, but I think it's more important not how do I recruit as many partners as possible, is how do I make sure I'm focused on the right ones.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about the end customer, what they need, and therefore you find partners that serve the customers you're trying to go after. Yeah. Actually, this one of the things about our VP sales conversation about the the close loss analysis. Mm-hmm. There's like that story of from the RAF where they're analyzing bullets, like the bullet holes in the planes. You're only going to see where the plane was fine. You got shot down because the customers already come in. The customers already come and talk to you. And then they say they have this integration, but you're never going to see the customers who will never talk to you because they could see you're not integrated with what they want. Yeah. Right. So, because the plane is like been shot down and over the channel before it gets back to the London. Right. So this is that RAF story. So it's about being in the market and hearing from the customers like before they come into sales, that partnership people have to do. And so if you're hiring a consultant and you're not actually the CEO, this is what I've found with a consultant. If you're not with customers, you're going to have a hard time understanding where the company should go, right? Like you can't captain from below deck. You have to be on deck. Okay. Cayman Somerville asks, I'm with Foodspace, which has an app for Salesforce. I'm trying to enter the Salesforce ecosystem. Any tips for building a go-to-market strategy within Salesforce, despite being an ISV force company? Well, first you should join the Salesforce channel in the CSA Slack, and you should go bother Richard Bernstein from Salesforce. You can find him. I'm just gonna pick on Richard because he just made a comment about this talk, and I'm making fun of him for fun. But anyway, there's a bunch of Salesforce people in the CSA Slack, and obviously Leslie Tom's on the board, and so we can connect you. That's number one. And we have a bunch of talks. But you've worked with the Salesforce ecosystem, Nam. What would you recommend?
It's a great ecosystem. It changed my career. My biggest advice is to double down. Don't get distracted. Even if you run into tough times, things like that. How do I get, I've built this product. How do I get the attention of the, my PAM or the AEs underneath them. Don't get distracted. If anything, get more focused. What type of go-to-market team do you want to talk to? Who do you want to talk to, right? And then be relentless. I mean, the Salesforce ecosystem is certainly noisy, but man, is it amazing that it does do a great job of incubating some just amazing products there, amazing people there. One of the things that I did accidentally that I will always be thankful for is, I really jumped in with 2 feet first in that ecosystem, and the people that supported me through it, I'm forever in debt with. So I would go all in. Even though I made fun of Salesforce and the Salesforce ecosystem and the platform earlier today. My apologies.
I'm big fans of Salesforce.
There you go. We're fans.
I defended them. Okay. Lisa asks another question, Lisa Lawson. She's a consultant, by the way, and she's a good one. So you can hire her, Pablo. Sure. But what other companies do you think do embedded OEM well? I think this is actually a really deep question, an interesting one, because embedded OEM SaaS is the next layer of the integration ecosystem where you take your product, rip the UI, and embed it in someone else, because customers are where they are. It doesn't matter if they come to your domain, as long as they're paying you, right, in my opinion. That's so right. Who are you looking to who's been doing a good job similar to you guys? You must have peers or people you look up to.
In our ecosystem, like other companies like this?
Oh, like who else in the world is doing, like there are other OEM like strategies? Like you must be, not alone. So who's doing a good job besides you?
The analytics entire ecosystem is amazing at this, right? The Good Datas of the world, Tableaus of the world, SciSenses of the world. I think have done such a phenomenal job because analytics and dashboards are such a culmination of so much work, and to have people trust, that product, that product of their data for what it's worth directly in the user experience. I think they really help pave the way for people to understand, like, yeah, OEMing SaaS within my product is fine and it's okay. It's normal, right? Every single one of them does it and they do it well.
Oh, I wish it was normal. I mean, it is a killer strategy for sure. For sure. I mean, packaging is everything, is what one of my other, I have a lot of shtick, but like packaging is everything. Like you have to sell the product in a way, placement is actually the thing, placement and packaging and pricing, if you know your P's. But if customers are somewhere else, you put your product where they are. I mean, you look at even e-commerce where people are putting stores inside Facebook now, right? Like that, who's going to come to your domain if they're already wherever they are? You want to click buy now and buy the damn thing, right? Yeah. And it's the same thing with like any enterprise SaaS. Just put your stuff where they are and take their money. I mean, who cares? Yeah. But commercializing it is interesting because you have to like tax the upstream partner, right? For it. And I think there's some innovation and learning there, but you guys have figured that out quite well. That's another conversation now. So what we'll do, you're in our Slack, right? So how do people get a hold of you? Obviously, you can go to the cloudsoftwareassociation.com/join and join our Slack and connect with everybody here. And then how else can they get a hold of you?
Email, LinkedIn. I don't know how people get a hold of each other nowadays.
nam.lee at Workato.
Yeah, nam.lee at Workato.com. And then I'm also nam.lee somewhere on LinkedIn as well. But happy to, I think we posted my LinkedIn profile and some of the communications, but happy to share that as well.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Nam did this because obviously he's head of sales at Workato, but if you hear what he's saying, he's been helping partnership people and teams for a long time. So he gave this to the community as a form of helping all of us figure out our partnership strategies. So, you're welcome to reach out. I'm putting words in your mouth, but to reach out to him for advice in general about your integration strategy, because it's a tough problem, right? And he's seen it all. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Hopefully I'll see you sometime in San Francisco, either soon or maybe in April when I'm there for SaaS Connect.
We can make it happen. I like San Francisco and I like happy hour. So I'm sure that'll happen sooner rather than later. I appreciate, thanks for having me. And to everyone that joined, hopefully those nuggets were found and, happy to help.
Right, awesome. All right, take care. Bye.